James Esposito. We know that agencies such as the FBI have infiltrated organizations in the past, and my question isn't if the FBI should, but if the FBI could. Do you think any law enforcement organization who had the financial means, which would be substantial, could infiltrate Scientology to obtain the necessary evidence to prove some of the criminal accusations that have been made? And if they could, what would be the best place to get in? Okay, people ask me about infiltrating Scientology, spying into Scientology, looking in on them from a law enforcement perspective, and could this, should this, would this be done? Yeah, it probably has been done in the past, and then we have, of course, Ben and Mike, right, or Angry Gay Pope, or these people who go around filming them all the time, and how effective is that? Well, Ben and Mike were great for getting some inside footage into of what really goes on in a church out into the outside world. And all it took were a couple guys walking in with spyglasses. So not a super, complex, devious plan, right? It wasn't particularly necessary that it be deep planning in order to infiltrate and come out with some good information that shows some of the crazy that goes on. But if you really wanted to go all in, if you were serious about this, let's go ahead and talk about it. Here's my ideas on this. And anybody who's listening, and law enforcement in particular, please take note, because I'm not kidding about any of this, and I do think this would work. In fact, I think this is the only way it could work if you really, really wanted to do it. But it would be a time investment, because it's going to take time to build trust and rapport with the people in Scientology in order for them to believe that you are who you purport to be. Ben and Mike were climbing the ladder so fast, joining the Sea Org, getting, being gung-ho, getting involved so quickly that even the Scientologists, the Sea Org members, they were like, whoa, man, you guys are like unicorns. You're so amazing, right? Yeah, you don't want to be doing any of that. If you're going to go in and infiltrate Scientology, you want to go in at a slow, steady pace and just look and act like a normal person experiencing Scientology for the first time. And you'd even go in with some cover story about having read some things on the internet, not Xenu. Do not ever name drop Xenu, ever. And do not ever claim to any knowledge about advanced OT materials or confidential materials in Scientology, nor will you ever question David Miscavige or L. Ron Hubbard or their legitimacy. You do that, it's going to be alarm bells up one side and down the other, especially now. The church is so tense about, any criticism. They are so sensitive to it that they will just immediately red flag anybody who comes in there saying that stuff. And so you want to be a model Scientologist, and that means going in as though you don't know anything, starting at the lowest level services, doing a communications class, doing the problems of work, personal efficiency seminar, right, which is like a 1 or 2 day deal, and then getting some Dianetics auditing like Ben did, right, and then climbing the ladder. But you know what? You don't have to film any of this stuff, because you're not going to run into any criminality, crazy, wild, weird stuff on your first days in. This is like I'm talking about a month or 2 or 3 of like just steadily going in a couple times a week, doing your classes, doing your auditing, paying for it, of course, and maybe looking for, good avenues to get up the bridge and that sort of thing, and honestly appearing as though you are doing the procedures and following all the rules. And that you're gradually getting more and more excited, more and more involved in this, right? And at the beginning, it's going to sound and look very, not normal, but it's not going to be like this crazy town where everybody's beating up on each other or anything like that. You're not going to see any of that stuff at the beginning. You're not going to see it for a while. Because what you need to do is you need to gradually get all the way in to where they believe you are a dedicated, paying, full-blown Scientologist. You're all in. You're going to the events. You're happy. You're standing up. You're clapping. You're involved. This should probably be about 4 or 5 months investment where you're regularly there. You're showing up. You're expressing satisfaction with the services that you've been receiving. Nothing mind-blowing. Not, oh my God, holy cow, my, red is blue and black is white. No, wow, everything's so different now. Just slow and steady wins the race on this, okay? It's an infiltration. So you got to infiltrate, and you got to learn the lingo. You can go in knowing all this stuff, But once you start living it, it takes on a whole different meaning and a whole different level of importance and significance. And you're going to start learning about the language and how people relate to one another in the world of Scientology. And what you want to do is inch your way towards joining the Sea Org. You're never, ever going to get anything substantial out of Scientology unless you get to the upper levels. And that means joining the Sea Org. Now, again, by this point, you're really not, you don't have to walk around with spy cams and secret record everything. In fact, you don't want to do anything with any of that stuff. You don't want to give them any excuse to kick you out. And like I said, Scientology right now is primed. They are so freaked out about people infiltrating them or spies or whatever. They always have been, but now more than ever. And you got to take that seriously, because they do. They take it very seriously. So anyway, point is, gradually go through these services, get up to, get up to like through that purification program, through the objectives program. And this is going to be the rough part for the person who's doing it, because you're going to have to sort of fake it through all this stuff, because you do not want to get involved in actually running these processes that they're going to try to run on you in the auditing. That's where the psychological damage and mindfuckery comes from. And you don't want any part of that, right? So you want to somehow get a person who is actually going to understand what the auditing process is, what hypnotism is, and how to avoid it, right? While looking like you're playing along and going along with it. And if you understand that the e-meter is just bullshit, and when it responds to something, you can just make up answers. Once you understand that, then the e-meter, all the mystique and mystery about the e-meter goes away, right? And you can actually kind of be in charge of what it's doing to a degree. You can't necessarily sit there and squeeze the cans when you want it to respond, because the people who run the e-meters are trained to look for that sort of thing. There is a difference between, reactions coming from actual electrical resistance versus squeezing the cans, really obviously, right? A lot of the reactions on the meter come from micro changes in muscle tissue and micro changes in sweat, but you're not in control of that, right? So as far as the meter goes, you just kind of want to run with it in the sessions and just kind of go with whatever the auditor is sitting there asking you about. It doesn't really matter what your answers are. There aren't answers you're going to give in auditing sessions that are going to get you traction or mileage with Scientologists. They don't care what comes up in your sessions, as long as it's not, present time criminal activity. They will take issue with that. But otherwise, they don't care what the content of your stuff is, as long as you're not going crazy town and talking about how you were L. Ron Hubbard in your last life or something, right? Just keep it normal, mundane, regular people kind of stuff. Climb the ladder, get into the Sea Org. And then the road really starts, because then it's going to be at least a year before you can get up the line to get to the international headquarters or get to the rarefied air of David Miscavige's inner circle. That's more than a year, actually. That's at least a year and a half, 2-year investment, right? Because you have to have a production record. You have to be a very, very gung-ho, with it, on purpose, effective Sea Org member, getting stuff done. Those are the guys who get moved up the line. Because everybody at the lower levels believes that this is what's wanted up above. They don't know how bad it is at international management. They don't know how bad David Miscavige really is in private. Everybody at this level down here is thinking that he's the bee's knees and everything's wonderful. So if you want to get up there, you got to act like that. And you got to be exceptional in that regard. So you got to be willing to rip into people. You're going to have to be willing to just get shit done, no matter what it takes. And there isn't a fast road to that. You're just going to have to do the work and suffer on through getting yelled at and screamed at and all the other nonsense that you're going to have to experience as a Scientology Sea Org member, right? But and that's the point where once you're in, after you've gone through the EPF, the boot camp, right? And you've gotten onto a post and you're producing and you're rolling and you're going, at that point is when you start bringing the spyware and stuff in. Not before that. There's no reason to. You're not trusted yet. You're going to get caught. and it's going to be bad, and you're going to get kicked out, and all that time is going to, and money is going to be wasted. So don't even bother starting to record stuff or trying to take inventory of what's going on around you until you really move up the line a bit as a Sea Org member. And finally, then, after enough time of this, and bucking for promotion and pushing for it, because as a Sea Org member, they want gung-ho, originative, I want to move up the line, I want to make this happen. They want that. So if you've created a past track record of being a normal person, and you come in and you do the Scientology and you gradually move up to a more and more fanatical level, then you can be believed, right? If you come in on day one as the unicorn, nobody's going to believe you, right? So you have to, this is why this backstory is so important. And keep in mind, all of this is being documented by Scientology internally. Pre-clear folder, ethics folder, student folder, they've got all of it. They're going to ask you for a life history where you're going to have to list every single sexual partner you've ever had, school you went to, job you held, person you've known. You have to have a detailed background that is not your actual background to that degree. You've got to have it that detailed for them to actually believe you. So the backstory and creating all of that and learning all of that. Well, if any of you ever saw that scene from Reservoir Dogs, Quentin Tarantino's movie, when the actor was, the British actor was learning his backstory for a drug deal. And he was just learning this humorous anecdote that he could tell to lower tensions and get people to believe that he was actually in the drug world. Well, it's going to be that by about 1,000 is what this undercover person is going to have to know. They're going to have to create an entire backstory, and it's going to have to not have anything to do with who they really are. And, and then they're going to need to know that backwards and forwards and not mess up on it, because it's all going to be very thoroughly documented within the church, right? And finally, when you get to the upper level, you start finally getting promoted and you move on up the line, then you start documenting what's going on. And of course, we have the technology to do that. So you just, figure that out and get it done. So that's the deal as far as like, if you really want to get into the inner circle and get the true deal on what goes on when the doors are closed and no one else is around, that's how you're going to have to do it. Nobody's going to do that. And that's why I don't think it's ever going to happen. But that's what I believe would be necessary to go in and actually get evidence of what goes on the inside, on the deep, deep, deep inside. But that's how you could do it.